Story 1. The woman in white who followed Daniel's car for miles. Daniel was used to driving late at night. He worked at a small diner off the highway and often finished past midnight. That night, fog rolled in thick over the countryside road, turning his drive home into a tunnel of darkness. His old sedan's headlights barely lit the path ahead, and the forest on both sides looked endless. The radio was off. It was quiet, too quiet. As he rounded a bend, Daniel spotted something up ahead. A woman stood by the shoulder of the road, wearing a long white dress that shimmered faintly in the headlights. Her head hung low, hair covering her face. Thinking she might need help, Daniel slowed down. But the closer he got, the more uneasy he felt. She wasn't moving, not even an inch. Her body was completely still, like a mannequin left in the wrong place. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to keep going, so he did. As his car passed, he caught a glimpse of her face, or what should have been a face. It was pale, blank, and hollow-looking. His heart raced as he pressed harder on the gas pedal, leaving her behind. But 10 minutes later, his stomach dropped. On the next stretch of road, there she was again. Same white dress, same eerie stillness standing on the opposite side this time. Daniel froze. There was no way she could have gotten there. There were no cross streets, no driveways, nothing but empty forest. Now he was sweating. He floored the accelerator, desperate to reach town. The car's engine whined and the road blurred past. He tried not to look in the mirrors, but curiosity got the better of him. She was in the middle of the road again, this time directly behind him. Her figure was growing smaller in the mirror, but her head had lifted. He could see it clearly, two hollow black eyes staring straight at him. Panicked, Daniel drove like his life depended on it. He didn't stop until he saw the glowing lights of a gas station. He pulled in, shaking, breathing hard. Relief washed over him until he stepped out. On the back windshield of his car, smeared through the dirt, was the mark of a handprint. Long, thin fingers had dragged down the glass, as if something had been holding on the entire time. Story 2. I picked up a hitchhiker, but he wasn't human. It was close to 1 a.m. when Ryan began the long drive home from visiting his parents. The highway was empty, stretching endlessly under a black sky with no stars. His phone had no signal, and the only sound came from the hum of his tires against the asphalt. Then out of nowhere, he saw someone standing by the roadside, a man in a dark hoodie with his thumb out. Ryan hesitated. It was the middle of nowhere, and no one should have been out walking. But guilt got the better of him. He slowed down and pulled over. The man stepped closer, his face still hidden by the hood. "Need a ride?" Ryan asked, trying to sound calm. The hitchhiker nodded once and silently opened the passenger door. As he climbed in, Ryan noticed something strange. His clothes were soaking wet, as if he'd been standing in the rain, but it hadn't rained all night. They drove in silence for several minutes. The man just stared straight ahead, not blinking, not moving. Ryan tried to make small talk, asking where he was headed. The hitchhiker replied in a low, raspy voice, "Just down the road." But the road went on forever. No houses, no lights, just darkness. Then, Ryan glanced over, and his stomach twisted. The man's hands were resting on his knees, but they were wrong. The fingers were too long, bending in odd angles like broken sticks. Ryan pretended not to notice, his heart pounding. A few minutes later, the temperature inside the car dropped sharply. His breath fogged up the windshield, and he could see frost forming on the dashboard vents. When he looked at the hitchhiker again, the seat beside him was empty. Ryan slammed on the brakes, his tires screeching. The passenger door was still closed. The seatbelt was buckled, but no one was there. He jumped out of the car, shining his phone flashlight into the trees. Nothing. Panicked, he got back in and drove as fast as he could. When he finally reached a gas station, he pulled over to catch his breath. That's when he saw it, muddy footprints leading from the passenger seat to the hood of his car, and ending at the windshield, as if something had climbed out and vanished into the night. Story 3. The car that appeared out of nowhere. It was a freezing November night when Tyler began his drive through the mountains. The 2-lane road was deserted, the kind of place where your radio fades into static and even the GPS loses signal. The moon was hidden behind clouds, and the only light came from his high beams cutting through the mist. Everything felt normal until he noticed headlights appear behind him. At first, he thought nothing of it, just another late-night traveler. But something about the car felt wrong. The headlights were too bright, too white, almost blinding. They stayed exactly the same distance behind him no matter how fast or slow he drove. He slowed down to 40. The car slowed too. He sped up to 80. The car matched him perfectly. Tyler's hands gripped the wheel tighter. The road had no turnoffs, no exits, just miles of blacktop winding through the forest. He flicked his high beams off and on, hoping the other driver would back off, but the lights only grew brighter. His rearview mirror filled with white, and his heart began to race. Suddenly, the car behind him swerved into the opposite lane, pulling up beside him. Tyler turned his head and his stomach dropped. There was no driver. The seats were empty, yet the car stayed perfectly aligned, its engine roaring beside him. Panic flooded his body. Tyler floored the accelerator, desperate to escape. The ghostly car followed for another mile, its headlights flickering like strobe lights. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished. No screeching tires, no sound. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. Tyler slowed down, gasping for breath. He looked all around, nothing but darkness and fog. Thinking he imagined it, he kept driving until he saw the faint lights of a small diner ahead. He pulled over, shaking, and went inside. The waitress noticed his pale face and asked if he was okay. Tyler laughed nervously and told her what happened. The diner went silent. The waitress glanced at the old man sitting by the window, who slowly said, "You saw it too." He explained that for years, drivers had reported seeing a phantom car on that very stretch of road, always the same headlights, always the same empty driver's seat. The legend said it was a wrecked car from decades ago, still replaying its final chase on foggy nights, looking for someone new to follow home. Story 4. Something was watching Alex on that empty highway. Alex was driving home from a weekend trip, taking a quiet back road that cut through miles of forest. It was just past midnight, and not another car had passed him for nearly an hour. The road stretched endlessly ahead, swallowed by darkness. His headlights illuminated only the faint outlines of trees, their twisted branches hanging over the asphalt like claws. He was halfway through his playlist when the feeling hit him, the unsettling sense that someone was watching. At first he brushed it off as exhaustion, but soon, the hair on the back of his neck stood straight up. The feeling was too strong, too real. He glanced in his mirrors. Nothing. Just the endless dark. Then something flickered by the edge of the trees. A shadow, low to the ground, running alongside his car. Alex's stomach twisted. Whatever it was fast, keeping up with his 60 miles per hour speed with ease. He leaned forward, squinting, trying to see what it was. That's when it happened. The shadow darted across the road, so fast it was almost a blur. Alex slammed on the brakes, his heart pounding, tires screeching. The car skidded to a stop. His headlights caught a glimpse of movement on the opposite side of the road, something crawling back into the forest on all fours. Shaking, he tried to start the car again, but the engine wouldn't turn over. The silence around him was suffocating. No crickets, no wind, no sound, just that thick, eerie stillness. He turned the key again, and this time the engine roared to life. But before he could drive off, he noticed something ahead. A figure stood on the road about 30 feet away. It was tall, unnaturally thin, and completely still, its head tilted slightly to one side as if studying him. Alex froze, gripping the wheel. Then the figure slowly lifted an arm and pointed straight at him. That was enough. Alex slammed the gas pedal and sped away, refusing to look back. For several minutes, he drove like a madman until the forest opened up and the faint lights of a small town appeared ahead. When he finally stopped at a gas station, he stepped out to breathe. That's when he saw muddy handprints streaked along the side of his car, dozens of them running from the back bumper to the driver's window, as if something had been running beside him in the dark the entire time. Story 5. The passenger who never got out. It was around 2 a.m. when Megan finished her night shift at the hospital. The road home was long, empty, and surrounded by open fields. She was exhausted, but the soft hum of the engine kept her calm as she drove through the misty night. About 15 minutes in, she saw something strange in her rearview mirror, a faint shape in the back seat. At first, she thought it was her jacket, but then the shape moved. Megan's stomach tightened. She turned slightly, her eyes flicking to the back. Nothing. Just the dark interior of her car. She laughed nervously and told herself she was imagining things. But a few minutes later, she heard it. A faint sound, like someone quietly breathing behind her. Her eyes shot to the mirror again. This time, she saw it clearly. A figure sitting in the back seat. It looked like a man, pale and expressionless, staring straight ahead. Her hands trembled on the steering wheel. The doors were locked, the windows rolled up, no one could have gotten in. She tried to stay calm and whispered to herself, "It's just stress, I'm tired." But then the breathing grew louder. She pressed harder on the gas pedal, desperate to reach town. The road seemed endless. Every time she looked in the mirror, the man was still there, unmoving, unblinking. Finally, she saw the lights of a 24-hour diner ahead and swerved into the parking lot. Megan jumped out gasping for air. She turned to look at the back seat. Empty. Completely empty. Shaking, she ran inside and told the diner clerk what happened. The old woman behind the counter froze, her face going pale. "You said you came from Highway 22? She asked quietly. Megan nodded. The woman swallowed hard. "You're not the first," she whispered. "That road years ago. A man died in a crash there. They say he still hits rides, sits in the back seat until someone stops." Megan forced a weak smile, trying to brush it off, but when she stepped outside again, her blood ran cold. The back door of her car was wide open, and in the fogged-up window, there was a message traced by a finger. Story 6. I saw a headlight in my rearview mirror, then it vanished. It was past midnight when Jason started his long drive back from a camping trip. The highway cut through open desert, nothing but flat land and darkness for miles. The road was so empty it almost felt like he was the last person alive. After an hour of silence, he noticed a single headlight appear far behind him in the rearview mirror. Just one, not two. At first, he thought it was a motorcycle, but as the minutes passed, the light didn't move closer or farther away. It just stayed there fixed perfectly in the center of his mirror. Jason kept glancing back, uneasy. When he slowed down, the light slowed too. When he sped up, it followed. The more he watched it, the stranger it looked. It didn't bounce or flicker like a real light. It just hovered, perfectly steady, bright and white. He rolled down his window, listening for the hum of an engine, but there was nothing. Only silence and the endless whistle of wind. He tried to shake it off. Maybe it was a reflection or another driver far behind him, but then the light suddenly blinked out. Gone. The darkness behind him was absolute. Jason exhaled, feeling relief wash over him until the light reappeared. This time, closer, much closer. Panic shot through his chest. He pressed down on the gas, the needle climbing past 80. The headlight stayed with him. Then, it began to shift. It moved from the center of the mirror to the left, then to the right. Like whatever it wasn't following the road at all. It was floating. Jason's heart pounded as he gripped the wheel. The light grew so bright it filled the entire back window, flooding the car's interior with white. Then, just like before it vanished, total darkness again. He drove the rest of the way without looking back once. When he finally reached town, he stopped at a 24-hour diner, still shaking. The waitress saw his pale face and asked if he was all right. He told her what happened, trying to laugh it off. Her expression turned serious. "You saw the phantom light," she said quietly. "People around here see it before accidents. Sometimes it follows them. Sometimes it passes through them." Jason didn't know what to say, but when he walked back to his car, he froze. The back of his vehicle was covered in a thick layer of dust, and drawn into it, perfectly centered, was a single glowing circle, the size of a headlight. Story 7. The Abandoned Road. That locals warn you not to take after midnight. Every small town has a road people whisper about, the kind that never shows up properly on GPS, where your phone loses signal, and strange things are said to happen after dark. For Ethan, that road was called Old Briar Lane. Locals said it used to connect to the main highway, but after a series of fatal accidents decades ago, it was officially closed. Still, late one night, curiosity got the better of him. It was just past midnight when Ethan decided to take the detour. The old wooden sign warning "Road Closed" was barely hanging by a nail, and the pavement was cracked with weeds pushing through. The moment his tires rolled onto the road, his radio started to hiss with static, and his phone screen went completely black. The trees on both sides grew denser, their branches twisting above him to block out the moonlight. The deeper he went, the quieter it got. Even the crickets stopped. Then in the corner of his eye, he saw movement, a figure standing at the edge of the woods. When he turned his headlights toward it, it was gone. He kept driving, heart pounding, telling himself it was just his imagination. But a few minutes later, the same figure appeared again, closer this time, right beside the road. A pale man with sunken eyes, dressed like someone from the 1950s, just staring at the car as it passed. Ethan slammed the gas, desperate to find an exit. The road curved endlessly, looping through the same stretch of forest over and over. He realized something terrifying. He'd been driving for nearly 20 minutes, but his gas gauge hadn't moved, and his odometer kept flickering between the same two numbers, 13 and 14. Then the headlights flickered. For a split second, the road ahead was filled with people, dozens of shadowy figures standing shoulder to shoulder, all staring at him. When the lights came back on, they were gone. Panicking, Ethan turned the car around and sped back the way he came. When he finally burst out onto the main highway, his phone lit up again, showing the time 3:07 a.m. He had been gone for 3 hours, even though he swore it had only been 20 minutes. Later, when he told a gas station clerk about what he saw, the man just shook his head. "You're lucky," he said. "Most who drive that road after midnight never make it back. They say it doesn't lead anywhere anymore, just circles back to the dead."